Well, good morning, everybody. I'm so excited to have everybody here joining us this morning. This is our last webinar of this series, Truth and Reconciliation Conversations. And I'm so very thankful to have Michelle with us this morning to talk about matriarchs in the city. I've known Michelle for a few years now. And every time that we're together, it's like big auntie energy in the room. Love the earrings and just the laughter and the time together. And so, Michelle, thank you for just being with us today and joining with us and sharing your wisdom. Before we begin, I just want to do a land acknowledgement and to acknowledge that the Salvation Army in Ontario, the THQ, is located on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississauga of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. We also acknowledge the commitments of Treaty 13 formed with the Mississauga of the Credit. And I am joining in from Treaty 1 territory today. But I invite you, if you don't know the traditional lands that you are on, to visit native-land.ca, and you can put that in the chat and share where you are also joining in from today. So I am going to stop the screen share and invite Michelle to share the wisdom this morning.
Beautiful. Well, Tanse, Michelle Nieviadomy, Nieviadomy, Kwakatus First Nation, Oche Niehiawiskweo. So my name, I just introduced myself in Cree. I'm not a fluent Cree speaker, but the elders always say you gotta try. And our language is tied to everything of who I am as an Indigenous woman, tied to ceremony, tied to the land, tied to my identity. So language is really important. So you got to try. And hopefully one day when I'm a grandmother, I got the gray hairs. Well, I do got the gray hairs now, but when, way later down the road, I hope that I'll be able to speak my language a little bit more fluently. So thank you so much for the invitation, Crystal, to be here. I feel very, very honored to talk about the matriarch. So for me, the matriarch is really the grandmothers in our community. So we're going to talk a little bit about this, but I feel it's important to also acknowledge where I come from. So I'm joining from Amiskwaciwâskahikan, Edmonton, Treaty 6 territory. So I acknowledged where my roots are, Kwakatus First Nation. So I come from Saskatchewan. I've never lived in Kwakatus, but it's really important for me to acknowledge where I come from, where my roots are. My hope this year is to make it to the powwow in Kwakatus. But yeah, so my roots are in Saskatchewan, but I've lived in Edmonton. I've lived in this beautiful city for about 23 years ago. I always say this, Creator called me home, called me to, I'm not very far. I think in all four directions, I got malls and access to shopping. Where I grew up in Saskatchewan, we would we'd have to travel 2 hours one way to go shopping. So I had an opportunity to move to Edmonton, and I remember my sibling, we shared a bedroom. And we would be up late at night when we should be, sleeping. We're talking about boys. And then we're talking about this place called West Edmonton Mall that is so magical. So fast forward, had a chance to move here. And so I did. And I finished my undergrad here. I've been doing community work for the past, I'd say 18, 19 years. So I work at this organization called Edmonton Native Healing Center. So it is an organization that's really rooted in, Indigenous values, but as Christians, as believers of the Jesus way, we are rooted in that as well. And so we're supported by the Christian Reformed Church denomination. And, it's been a beautiful journey being here for about 18 years, I would say. 18 years is a long time, but it's been amazing to be with community, to walk with community, to also understand my own journey and, where I have come from. I also, right now, I'm sitting in my studio. So I have a business here. So I acknowledge, that I'm a guest to Treaty 6 territory, that I have the opportunity to, dream the dreams, follow my heart, follow my passion, follow my vision. And I'd be able to start up a small business here. And I just really acknowledge the ones who've walked before me, who really paved a path so that I could walk in a good way. I can follow my dreams. When I think of my ancestors, that wasn't the case at all. So I acknowledge those who've walked before me so that I stand really on their shoulders. So I think that that's also important to acknowledge, yes, the land that we live on, but also, the opportunity that comes with the lands, that we're able to flourish, we're able to heal, we're able to, bring the good news, we're able to be with community because of the people who walked before us and made it so. So we're going to talk about grandmothers today. I'm going to share my screen. I do have a couple of pictures. I might go back and forth, but we'll see. We'll see how it rolls out. Here, just keep me and technology. We don't have always the best relationship. So I always get a little nervous and a little anxious. Matriarch, really at the end of the day, what we're talking about is matriarch love. And it's something that all of us carry within us, whether we've held it, we've known it from grandmothers in our lives, whether they're biological grandmothers or chosen family, chosen grandmothers. I think we all carry that love within us. And then one day we will step into that role as women. So this, I just want to say wow. And so this is a Cree word, and this is everybody is welcome here, that you belong, you matter, you are love, and you are loved, and you deserve it all. Like Creator has given us so many good things to prosper, to thrive, to heal, to step into who we are meant to be. But sometimes we get in our own way. So sometimes we need to be reminded that, yeah, we belong in Creator's world. We belong in these circles, that our stories do matter. Our life experiences do matter. And that love, I really believe, and this is probably one of the biggest messages that I can, share, is that love. We are here. We've come into this world. When we were born into this world, it doesn't matter about, your family circumstances. It doesn't matter about the relationship between your parents at that time, but you were born into love because of Creator. And so that's a gift right there that we carry. We've been born, we've been birthed with this love. And sometimes what happens along our journey is we lose that because of trauma, because of life experiences, because of disconnection. We lose a little bit of that love. And so really, for me, the matriarchs, the grandmothers, they bring that good medicine. So you're loved. And then again, you deserve it all. You deserve all the goodness. You deserve all of the love. You deserve all that Creator has intended for you. There's 4 gifts that I really believe that we have been given as people. So we've been given our minds, we've been given our hearts, and that the emotions and the feelings. And I really believe those are all of our teachers. We've been given our physical body, which carries the most sacred parts of who we are, and our spirits, which is, that helps us, that gives us that connection to Creator. So we've been given these 4 gifts to walk in Creator's world. There's this beautiful Cree word, which is miopamatsuin, which is walking the good life. And we have every morning when that sun rises in the east, that's Creator giving us the gift of this day, and to walk it in the best way, using our own gifts to navigate through all of the goodness, the hardships, the mountaintops, the valleys. But we've been given these 4 gifts. So we have Creator of all of the universe, who made everything, has made the waters, the land, the animals, the plants, us. but also have given us the keys, the tools, the power that we are also co-creators of our own life wherever we go. So I wanted to take a moment also to acknowledge the gifts that we are, just as we're sitting there, just as we are, that we don't have to fix this, we don't have to do this, there's no prerequisites here. All you have to be is yourself and show up and try to walk the best way that you know how, and to honor these 4 gifts that have been given to us. So we have, as an Indigenous woman, I'm coming from that lens. As an Indigenous woman, I am Cree and Nieviadomy, but I believe that this can be all applicable to your life. So I just invite you to come with an open mind, an open heart. Let's take a deep breath in through the nose and exhale out through the mouth. And let's do that one more time. So we're just really setting the tone. We're inviting, that open mind, open heart. We're inviting Creator into this conversation, this teaching, but we're also, we want to acknowledge the ancestors who walked before us, the grandmothers, the matriarchs. And I feel so honored because I got to do a little research last spring and have some conversations with matriarchs here in Edmonton, and got to really listen to their story and understand the power and the strength and the capacity that they hold, that they still bring to, our communities and our families into our lives. So I feel very honored, and I hope with this presentation I honor the grandmothers in my life. So she lives her way, as Creator calls. She walks her truth through the rise and the fall. When she breaks, she breathes fire and brings life for us all. That should have said, when she breathes fire and brings life for us all. So today, the Indigenous woman is one of the most vulnerable here in Canada. A couple of weeks ago, May 5th, we had a day of commemoration of the missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, two-spirited and peoples. And so we acknowledge and recognize that there is this crisis of our women. But history, so if we were to look back in history, it teaches us that Indigenous women are women that I've come to understand is the most powerful. So despite decolonization and systems intending to eradicate her existence, her role, her leadership, her voice, she is still here. In today's modern world, the Indigenous woman continues to lead, nurture, heal, and carry the torch from those who walked before her. She carries this legacy of fire, and we acknowledge her and we acknowledge this story in this moment. So this is the logo of my business. It's a squeo. Again, a squeo means woman in Cree. And when I started my business, like about 14 years ago, so I'm in the health and wellness field. I teach different fitness classes and wellness. I do wellness workshops. So I'm anything under the umbrella really of health and wellness. That's my medicine. That's my wheelhouse. So when it came to naming my business, it was actually really personal. And for me, I wanted to reclaim this name. Again, I wasn't fluent in Cree by any means. I, in fact, knew very little. But for me, as an Indigenous woman who began to heal, because I really was embarrassed and ashamed for a lot of my life. I remember praying for blonde hair, blue eyes, thinking that would fix me, that would fix that hurt. So I struggled with who I was, and I ran away from who I was for a very long time. So I named my business when I was stepping into that healing, when I was accepting who I was, who Creator made me to be. And I was naming my business as like, I need to bring this name back for myself. So Esqueo, Esqueo Health. So this word is a Cree word, and it's actually derived from the word Iskitu, which means fire. So by this understanding, a woman is born with fire. a creator-given fire. Her fire is her spirit. It is her inheritance to be a powerful presence in Creator's world. She's the strength. She's the backbone for community and family. So from birth, she was seen as a gift bestowed to the community from Creator. So whenever a child is born into our families and into our communities, we say, "Kinanan, I thank you for this gift that you've loaned this child to us." So the community responded accordingly when that child is born, with ceremony, teachings, and stories to strengthen and to support her. She would have learned at a very young age how to love, to nurture, to lead, and most importantly, to pray. When she would transition from one stage of life to the next, each stage was met with a ceremony and guidance by the grandmothers, by the matriarchs. So the grandmothers in our world, in our understanding, had an absolutely distinct role. And that was to pass on these teachings, these ceremonies, the songs. So the grandmothers had this very unique and very important role. So my understanding of the matriarchs, so many people have different understandings of matriarchs, but my understanding of the matriarchs is the grandmothers. So by the time a woman reached the stage of her life as a grandmother, she would already know what her roles and responsibilities are. So out of her flows this deep well of knowledge that sustains not only her traditions, ceremonies, culture, and community. So, right, she sustains, the word life giver comes to mind. We are life givers. We've been given this gift to bring life into the world. We're all here because of mothers who have birthed us. But for those, I'm not a mother myself, so I've come to terms with that. But I've also realized I also am a life giver, and that I can bring life into the community. I can bring also teachings. I can bring also peace and hope and love wherever I go. And in essence, I'm bringing life to that community. So she is a woman. She's a carrier of knowledge, truth, compassion. She is the decision maker, the nurturer, the leader, and the life giver. So here's one quote that I found really beautiful, and it really connected with my own heart, right? And it's from this woman, and her name is Ivy, a Cree woman. And she captures her responsibility as this: "I grew up with a sense of women's responsibility for all people. It's not just women's responsibility to the children. We have a responsibility for all people. We have to. We are the life givers. We are the life force of the nation. And our responsibility is everyone, male and female, young or old, because we are at that place from which life itself emanates. And there's nothing greater than that." So one of the most greatest and sacred gifts from Creator. It is no wonder the presence of Indigenous women within our nations is a powerful force and undoubtedly necessary for the well-being for community. So her responsibility, our responsibility, encompasses so much. So in some Indigenous communities, it was the woman who held the leadership roles. So we come from this worldview, which is very circular, right? And then when the Western world starts to begin to influence, the nations, it started to become more patriarch, right? So it's more of a hierarchy system. And it was men who were seemed or deemed as the ultimate leaders, right? Whereas women were the backbone and center of community. And it was women who would hold those leadership roles. So prior to European contact, the ensuing fundamental disruption to the traditional lifestyle of Indigenous communities, women were central. They were boss of the family. They were revered in the communities and that identified as matriarchal societies. They had roles within community and government and spiritual ceremonies, and were generally respected for the sacred gifts bestowed upon them by the Creator. So before colonization, Cree children belonged to the mother's clan, to the mother's family, to the mother's side. So hereditary leadership was passed through the maternal line, and women elders could remove leaders from whom they disapprove. So they had that power, but I also would say they would have that wisdom and say, okay, that role right there isn't benefiting the community. So let's take that person from that role. So the matriarchs were really the final decision makers. The men would go to the grandmothers for final approval, as they had eyes that looked toward the 7 generations. So we really believe that there's, we're not living for us right now. Well, we're doing our thing, we're following our dreams and our passions, but we're also being mindful. Am I creating a space for the generations who, are up and coming? Are they going to have better opportunity than me? So just having that also mindset, thinking 7 generations. So she moved, she thought, she lived, she's honoring, yes, the past and being mindful of the future. So despite her irreplaceable contribution to the health of community, she was stifled. Our Canadian history, it tells the story in which Indigenous women faced layers upon layers of barriers, such as discrimination and exclusion, in which she cannot truly be her authentic self. She cannot be the woman that Creator had intended her to be, with the policies such as the Indian Act, which disrespected, ignored, and undermined her role as an Indigenous woman in many ways. And the influence of the male-dominated society and patriarchal system undervalued her strength in the community. So in this new Western world, it interrupted her place and questioned her identity. So despite the onset of racism, discrimination, sexism, and colonialism, the Indigenous woman is living proof of resilience, perseverance, tenacity, and determination. So we are operating, I would say today, in a deficit. Traditionally, we would have access to all of these grandmothers' teachings to help us live well. We'd have access to ceremonies and songs and stories and knowledge, again, to help us to walk that path, that good road. So Creator has always given us the medicine that we needed for our mind, our heart, our body, and our spirit to help us to walk well. So these sacred things kept the spirits of the people open to Creator's guidance, love, and kept them connected to land. For we live in Creator spirit with the 4-legged, the winged ones, the swimmers, the crawlers, and of course there's us, the 2-legged. And we walk through all of these different seasons of our lives, the mountaintop, the valleys, the highs, the lows. And again, Creator has given us everything to walk through it all. So for us Indigenous people, it is the ancestral knowledge that is passed on from generation to generation. It is teaching. So I have this beautiful family in my world, in my life. So they bring in the teaching. It's the grandmothers who sit in the 4 directions. And so I'm going to credit where credit is due. Her name is Margaret Cardinal. I think she's turning, like she's in the almost 80 years old. And so she shares her teaching so generously to the community, how that these teachings can apply to our lives, to honor Creator first, to honor our own selves, our spirit, but also to honor the circle and the community. So this family has lived for decades. They've lived in Edmonton for as long as she's, been born. So that's 80 years. And so now she has children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. So she's really leaving this beautiful legacy. So it's sacred teachings that she brings that help us to remember our strength and our resiliency. So one of the teachings she has, which, I hold in my heart, in the North, she would say, the grandmother that sits in the North reminds us to have fun. And she's called the fun spirit woman, right? And especially when we're going through hard times. We need to find ways to lighten that load, that burden. So that grandmother teaches us that piece. Then there's the grandmother legend in the East, who's the oldest grandmother. And she teaches us to live as women, teaches us wisdom to live as women and mothers and grandmothers. So there's been that knowledge that has been here from the beginning. And so that's just reminding us that we have wisdom within our own selves, within our own life stories and our experiences and the teachings that have been passed on to us. So remember the wisdom that you carry. Then there's the grandmother in the West, which is the Thunderbird spirit woman, and she teaches us about our emotions. We are able to let go. There's some emotions that are too hard to hold, and that we have permission, we can let go. And letting go usually happens, ceremony, when we talk it out in a good way. So, connecting to the emotions that we all feel, but also acknowledging that there's some emotions that, are there, to stay for a season. And then there's some that we have to say, okay, awas, it's not now time to let you go. And in the South, it is the strong spirit woman. That's that grandmother teaching who reminds us to balance ourselves, to walk in balance, right? To walk in your mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual self, to walk in that good balance. So that's just one example of, the teachings that this grandmother had brought into my life that I reflect on. So when, for example, when I feel overwhelmed and feel grief stricken, I tap into, I think about the fun spirit women, and I was like, what can I do today to ease this pain in a good way? What can I do to lighten the load? Again, Creator has given us all the keys and all the tools, and it ultimately is up to us and our actions. So those teachings just are good reminders of ways that we live in a good way. So Indigenous ways of knowing are shaped by our livelihoods and shared experiences. There are many traditional teachings that have yet to be honored because we've lost a lot because of colonization. And without this knowledge, we're missing the wisdom of how to cope, to respond, to walk and heal in a better way. And this is why revitalization of our culture and our ceremonies and stories are so important, because they're also ways of being, tools that will help me to be a better person, that will help you to walk in your journey, in your path. So I've had a front row seat as a community practitioner for many moons. So, 18 years. So I'm privileged to be surrounded by many Indigenous women, particularly the grandmothers. And this is one of them. Her back is faced to us. I do have another picture coming up later. And this woman is the first grandmother I'm going to talk about. So I talked with 4 grandmothers and got to listen to their stories. And let me tell you, it's beautiful. It's incredible. And it was medicine for me to listen to what they had to share. So the thing about Trudy, that is her name. And also I've been given permission to, talk about their stories. She was somebody who came across my path, I'm going to say 12 years ago. So this is just, I want to explain a little bit about this picture. We were this was last year around missing and murdered. So around the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls Two-Spirited Day. And we hosted an event, and we thought it was really appropriate to bring out the prayers, to bring the pipe ceremony. So this is what she's just setting up for ceremony and then just waiting for the community to arrive. But before we talk a little bit more about Trudy, for me, when I first came to Edmonton, again, I didn't really want to be Cree. I didn't want to acknowledge who I was. I felt like I didn't need to. I could go along my journey just fine, pretending that I wasn't Indigenous. How silly that is to say out loud now, but that was really my thoughts. And then I had, pain struck my family, trauma crisis struck my family. And I was really, really desperate. I had lost my sister to drugs, to addictions. And so I was in a very vulnerable and desperate place in my life, and I needed help. I could go to church, I could pray, I could, sing praise and worship songs all day long, but nothing would make this pain, nothing would make this grief, nothing would lighten that load. And so I was desperate and I needed help. And so I asked Creator, gotta help a girl out. And so I was invited to a ceremony, my very first ceremony. And it was a sweat lodge ceremony. So it was about 45 minutes outside of the city, traveled there, went into the lodge, really knew nothing. I was just going there because I'm desperate to try anything. Went there, and when you go into a lodge, you actually have to, for me, I have to get down onto my hands and knees and crawl into this lodge. And there was Margaret sitting off to the right of me, the left of me. And I found my place to sit in that lodge. And as soon as I sat down, she says, "Welcome home." As soon as she said that to me, that was like, it spoke to my spirit. This grandmother, this matriarch is welcoming back me to who I am, who Creator had called me, who made me as a Cree woman. So it was medicine to my soul. It was a divine moment in which this grandmother was a messenger of Creator. So out of her flows that unconditional love, the Creator kind of love, the love that heals and transforms. For it was love that was lost with colonization and residential schools. And so it will be love that will return us back home to ourselves, to the circle, to connection, and to Creator. And so that was like a pivotal moment in my life. And from then on, I knew it was ceremony. I knew it was this way of life that will help me to heal. So wherever a woman goes, she takes her heart and her home. Her home at one time was the land, the people, the teepee. And today in Edmonton, there's this, again, I talked about Trudy. She is a person, a woman who is of the land, the people, and the teepee. She's an elder. She's a knowledge keeper. She's a pipe carrier. Being born a Cree woman, she inherited not only a matrilineal lineage, but great responsibility to walk this journey with love, courage, humility, honesty, respect, truth, and wisdom, which are the 7 sacred teachings. The matriarch is her crown. So she's the prayers of her ancestors for this time in this generation. She is one who embodies the essence of a matriarch. All of her relations include the land, the animals, the plants, the waters, the people, and everything in Creator's world. She walks in harmony with all. She teaches, what she teaches is really what's in her heart, and it's manifested through her actions and how she walks in Creator's world. So she plants, so this is her teepee that I have, like this huge teepee in Edmonton, in the city, in her backyard. And here's this, like, I think it's an 18-footer teepee. It's a huge teepee in her backyard. But she also plants her own sweetgrass, her own medicines, but she also plants teachings into people's lives. Her reach is so far. So she's a powerful woman. And this teepee for me is a powerful representation of who Trudy is. So there are many teachings of the teepee, and this is the one that I was told. So the teepee represents, so if we look at this teepee, it represents the structure of our communities and the role and the values of Nehiao, of Cree women. So the teepee is the women's lodge. The woman is the owner, the sole the sole person who is responsible for this teepee. She's powerful. As I look at this, she's powerful. So if you visualize the teepee and the way the teepee stands, it is widest at the base. So as we see, it's, has a really big circular base. And so the base of the teepee represents the dress top. And those wind flaps, which you can't really see. So at the top, you see one flap comes over. So if we were to open them, it'd be like the arms that are opening up like this. So it's kind of like that. So the arms that are reaching out, outstretched, again, acknowledging the creator. We need help on our journey. We're not here. Yes, we're powerful, but we also need the help of creator. And, you know, our power ultimately comes from creator. So that's just a really good visual representation of that. The shape of the teepee, again, represents women giving thanks to creator for the sacred gift of being able to give life and creating life. So this teepee is a woman's gift. The teepee is her place, her lodge. She's the owner, keeper, and caretaker. So one of, I think, most sacred places in the city for women, and a lot of us women know Trudy, but it is in her teepee. It's not found in churches. It's not found in community organizations like the one I work in. It's found in her teepee because she brings that nurture. She brings that safety. She brings that grandmother love, that good medicine. She lives, she breathes the circle. And in the circle, there's no greater than, there's no less than, that all of our stories, again, matter. We are all equal. So by Trudy living, setting up the teepee, inviting women to gather, she is seen and heard once again in our communities, in our cities, in our families. So she dismantles the narrative that Indigenous women are less than. The ceremonies she brings are the full moon, sweat lodge, pipe, smudge, and they are all meant to draw people closer to Creator and to our own selves. She is the bridge between the old ways and today. And in her circle, she has guided so many people to find their way home to Creator, home to themselves, as she leads by example. She truly does. As she's encouragement, she supports, and she's just a beautiful woman. So I'm going to, because I just realized time, and we just got on Trudy. So I'm going to bypass a couple of pieces that I had. I just want to share this one, this story, Trudy. This is right in the heart of downtown Edmonton, you know, right? So in the back, you see tents. Right behind them, on the blanket, you see like burnt on the ground. So that was somebody's home that burnt down the night before. So this is right in, you know, the inner city, a lot of homelessness, a lot of people struggling. And I invited her because it was the spring and I want to start the season in a good way, in a new way, and not forget about our community members who struggle profoundly on our streets. So I asked her, hey, can you come? And I didn't know if she'd even say yes, but I'm going to try. And I say, would you mind just coming to do a pipe ceremony right on the sidewalk, right with the people? And there was no hesitation. And to me, again, this is the matriarch medicine. This is the love that she is all about community. So she's lifting the pipe, but really what the pipe represents is our prayers. We're lifting our prayers for the people. And so this was a beautiful example of how she lives her life. She will always, no matter the circumstances, she will always set up. She will always be there. She will step out for community because it's about the people. So that's another picture of her. That's Trudy in the orange top. This is Pauline. So the teaching. So Pauline passed away. She was a grandmother and elder in my life. She passed away 2 years ago. And for me, I didn't have necessarily I had grandmothers, but they were not grandmotherly to me, if that makes any sense. So I didn't really know a grandmother's love until Trudy stepped into my life. There's another Cookum here. Oh, and I missed her picture. There's another Cookum and her name's Dorothy. She's at the very front. Dorothy's right here. She's the one smelling the sweetgrass. And I really believe Creator's so kind that he brought grandmothers into my life, and it's never too old to feel the love of a grandmother. So a quick story about Pauline. she was 76 years old at the time. I went out to the land for my first fasting ceremony. I live downtown Edmonton. I live there on purpose. I love the concrete jungle. I love the urban life. I love city life. And so when I was going to do my first fasting ceremony, I was like scared. I was like, I have to go in the land for 4 days with just me. So I was really scared, really nervous. And I didn't call them up. I sent them a text because I was nervous. I was like, hey, I borrowed my friend's minivan. I think I can do my fast in this minivan. And then they said, we'll get back to you. And not knowing behind the scenes, they're laughing at each other and the giggling. Like, well, how is this girl even asking this question? A minivan to go fast on the land. So then they come back to me and they're like, no, you cannot use your friend's minivan to come fast. So then I was like, oh, dang. So I had a tent. I do not camp. I'm not a camper. So here I am camping. And I don't know much, right? So we'll plead ignorance here. So when we fast, the way us women fast, we will stay around the fire all night. So when the sun goes down, we all go around the fire. There's no talking, you're praying, you can sing your songs, but there's no talking to each other. So you're up all night around the fire. And when the sun comes up, then you can go back to your tent and you can sleep or whatever you need to do. But it had started to rain that night. And I didn't know. I'm pleading ignorance, remember. I got back to my tent. I did not close one of the doors. I closed the screen door, but I didn't close the other door. And my water got all into my tent. So everything soaked. And I was like grumbling to creators, like, of course, I'm going to have to do it this way. Of course, this is the hard way. So it was woe is me. And then Pauline comes to my tent and she just to check on me. How are you doing, my girl? I'm like, everything's wet. My tent got soaked. And she's like, you didn't close your door? I was like, no. And she laughed. She giggled. She's like, okay. And then she leaves. And I thought that was it. Right. So I accepted this condition and it's pouring rain at this time. She comes back, I don't know, maybe 2 hours later. And she says, come with me. And I go with her and she set up a bed for me inside this lodge. Because I thought I was going to have to suffer. I was just going to have to pay my dues, in this ceremony. As she comes back and she grabs me, sets me up into this lodge. She made a bed for me. But what had to have happened, she had to walk in this pouring rain, 76 years old. Now there's tons of mud happening on the ground. It was about a 15-minute walk back to our vehicles. So 30-minute walk. She walked through the pouring rain for me. So in that moment, the teaching was, this is what a grandmother's love feels like. This is what it looks like. And in that moment, I felt nothing but Creator's love through this grandmother. And that is the medicine that we all have the opportunity, we all have the ability, we all have the capacity to bring. It is love that will guide us back, that will call our kids back home to themselves. It will call our kids back to community, to ceremony, back to that beautiful connection with Creator. It is love. And so listening to all of these stories from these grandmothers, and every single one of them, I'm sorry I only got to share a couple of them, but it always ties back to the love. One quick story I do want to share as I'm thinking about it too. So the picture of Dorothy, who is the one smelling the sweetgrass, she's a fierce grandmother. And I met her because there's a church down in the inner city of Edmonton called the Inner City Pastoral Ministry. And I've been part of their church for about 10 years. And that's where I met Cookham Dorothy. She's fierce and she is not afraid. Sometimes lots of people will come to that part of the city and they're super afraid because they just don't know, they're uncertain, but she has no fear. She will walk those streets and she will tell people, you better smarten up, you better behave. And this one Sunday morning, there was another woman who had no shoes. She's walking around the streets, no shoes, especially in the inner city. It's pretty dirty down there. No shoes. And the cookum, she's like, somebody get this woman a pair of shoes. Like, and she said it with authority, but she said it with love because she saw a need. And she had the capacity to call out, to make sure that that need was taken care of. So grandmothers teach us love, nurture, community care. And so I'm just so inspired by these women who've come across my path, and they've taught me so much. So we all carry that medicine within us. We all do. There's teachings that have been passed on to us. And so we carry also. We're maybe not matriarchs yet. We're maybe not grandmothers yet. But one day we will step into that role. And I can only hope that I'm as beautiful, strong, caring, and loving as these women have been in my life. So matriarch, women are beautiful. We carry good medicine within us all. So Kinanan Skomptanan, I thank you. Oh, so yeah, one last thing, turn to my last page here, right? Love ourselves, loving Creator, loving the land, loving the world that Creator has given to us, loving one another. And so that's really what the matriarchs teach us, is that beautiful, beautiful medicine of love. There we go. So I'm open to any thoughts, comments, questions. I know I could talk about Trudy and all the other grandmothers forever. So sorry, I got off track a little bit. I sometimes, can ramble because I just love their stories. So anyways, we'll open up the floor. Any questions or thoughts?
I just want to start by saying thank you, Michelle. A couple months ago, I was at a webinar, and one of the people in the webinar talked about teaching or speaking about Indigenous brilliance as much as you speak about Indigenous trauma. And that was something that I really wanted to do in this session and this month, to honor Red Dress Day, but talk about Indigenous brilliance. And you just knocked it out of the park. Just a good reminder to us about the power that women hold in our communities. And it's much similar within the Mi'kmaq community and in my community about the importance and the place of women. Yeah, so thank you. Thank you so much.
I can echo that. Crystal, thank you, Michelle, for sharing. That was really great. And the one part that I have underlined here is just Indigenous women as living proof of resilience and strength. That is so beautiful. And I hope to be able to kind of just take that knowledge with me into our work. And it uplifted me. And I hope that kind of message can continue to uplift other Indigenous women. So thank you.
Yeah, it's a very powerful presentation, and I thank you for sharing with us your gift of speaking. I found a lot of deep wisdom in what you said, and I thank Creator for speaking through you this morning to my heart. Yeah, I am a mother, and so a lot of what you said was inspiring, and I hope that I can, thinking of the next generations, I pray that I can help to let go of trauma, of my own trauma, to help bring healing into my life that impacts my children's life, to walk knowing that they belong, knowing that they are loved, knowing that they deserve all the goodness that Creator has for them. So thank you for that. But also the reminder that as women, we are life givers, but that does not mean you have to have children yourself, that you're a life giver to community. And in my role as an officer, that is, I'm not who I interact with. I'm not their mother, but I can be a conduit of life giving. And so thank you for that. And I pray that I can live into that.
Well, thank you all. I just wanted to, I wore a t-shirt, you can't even see it, but I wore this t-shirt, and it really stems from, understanding these grandmothers, but my t-shirt says, I am good medicine. So I wore it today on purpose. So remember the medicine you are.
Michelle, I'm Michelle, but I would just like to echo what the others have shared, that I just feel that this has been very sacred space, and we're just a little small group, but you reminded us about the strength of women, and the strength of Indigenous women, and how indebted we are to you and to all that the knowledge and the keeping of the lands on which we now reside, and the knowledge that you continue to pass on, and the wisdom you have. And I think, as you said at the ending, your hope, your prayer would be that how you would impact future generations. And I think we can see it in the way that you have presented. You've shared your gift with us today, as you share with people each day. And I'm just so very grateful that I was able to have this opportunity to be here. So thank you, and just bless you as you continue in your community.
Well, thank you everybody for attending today. This is our last webinar until after the summer. It's a busy couple of months coming up for the Salvation Army World, but I encourage you in September 1st to 3rd for the Celebration of Culture to attend. Michelle will be there in person, so very excited. She comes and shares in a lot of our ceremonies and guides us through those pieces, and does some sessions for us and all those pieces as well. But I encourage you to attend, and look forward to seeing you at that, or again in the fall with some more webinars. So thank you so much for coming today.